Hi, my name is Oren, and I'm the Vice President of Partnerships and Alliances. Really excited to be here today. Thank you for taking the time. And what I'm going to talk today about is the future of work and how we at Monday view it, and as well as how we have adapted to some of the new realities set upon us by the COVID-19 situation. So what is work? Work is something that we all do. We do every day. And when you go and ask people what is the definition of work, it's actually pretty complicated to come up with one answer. At the end of the day, it's about doing something both either physically or mentally to, hit or achieve your objectives, whatever those are. But work itself has evolved tremendously over these past few centuries, and obviously has accelerated in its change over the last few years. And from the assembly line that you see here in the presentation, all the way to the knowledge worker of today, a lot has changed. Technology has changed. The tasks that we do have changed. The environment in which we operate has changed. But in many cases, the tools and a lot of things that we still use today haven't really evolved to represent this change. And so the question comes up, and a lot of discussions are around today around the future of work. And is the future of work really here, right? Obviously, COVID-19 has accelerated some transformations that were already in the market, especially obviously around remote work. But a lot of things that have already happened before that have been accelerated by the virus. Right. So, the fact that distributed decisions need to be made, the fact that you need to really communicate digitally wherever it is that you are, all of this have, been accelerated and influenced by the virus and by the issues that it created. And so, when we think about the future of work, when you try and kind of consider what the future of work may look like, you can see that, we are all going to have different ways of communication. We're going to develop new skills. Again, the skills of the worker, 10, 15, even 5 years ago were very different than the skills of every worker that we have today. And the roles and the jobs of the future are going to be different. And the need to communicate. I mean, obviously, all of us have transitioned to Zoom when COVID hit. But it's not just about the fact that we can do, Zoom calls and Zoom recordings, but really it's about how people communicate. How do we achieve that same sense of connection that people have in this future state? And so my thesis is that the future of work is already here. We're already seeing a lot of it happening in and around us, but there's still a long way to go, and we are kind of living in a really exciting era where these transformations are happening. A very interesting thing about that evolution of work is really about how decisions are being made in an organization, right? So again, not very long ago, and still in many organizations, the decisions were made top down. This notion of a central nervous system where decision kind of trickle down from the top. Somebody makes a decision at the top and it goes all the way down in the organization. That notion is evolving. That notion is changing where, today, for organizations to move fast enough, to move at the pace of change, organizations, the decisions need to happen at the edges, right? And those decisions and the way people interact, people need more autonomy in order to react to the world around them. And we'll talk in a little bit about how Monday, adapted and how we think about these changes. But one thing is definitely paramount, and that's that the fact that this notion of supporting this distributed nervous system, this notion of remote decisions, this notion of making the decisions at the node instead of at the top, are things that everyone needs to consider today. And so, when we think about the future of work, or, I guess everyday's life kind of work, we see a lot of challenges and a lot of things that we all kind of, have to deal with in a day-to-day basis. Obviously, communication, I mentioned that, but, the fact that we are, now all remote, but, more and more as a work world, we see more and more people working remotely. We see more and more distributed work happening. I think that the fact that we need to find effective ways of communicating and not just putting everybody on Zoom, but really being able to communicate in an effective way, to track things, to follow up on things. These are all critical things. Another element that, that's really critical is really how you manage change, right? The world around us is transforming so fast. There's so many things that are happening on an ongoing basis that, you really need to be able to adapt to this change and really have an organization that knows how to support that. Building trust. So again, it's very hard, especially in this day and age when, everybody is remote, to have that same human connection, that same trust building. And I think those two things kind of go hand in hand, both internally in the organizations and externally. And those work-life boundaries, right? The thing that we, as each and every one of us, I'm recording this thing from my home office, and the ability to really kind of put that border, that boundary between what you're doing day to day and what you are, what you're doing in your work life is really kind of, disappeared in many cases. Same as interruptions, right? You still have you have those challenges now when you're working and your dog barks or your kid comes in, or, so really being able to focus on what you're doing when you're doing and being in the moment. By the way, not just the fact that you're working from home, but the fact that your phone is buzzing and you've got 5 different ways of communicating. All of those things really create that, that challenge at work. And at the heart of a lot of it is really creating that collaboration and alignment, that connection between people in the organization, and really being able to manage things across this now much more distributed organization that needs to move a lot faster, needs to react a lot faster to things that are happening, and really create that alignment and the ability to create this momentum going forward. And so these challenges really make what our work environment looks like today. And these are some of the things that happened, by the way, pre-Corona, pre-COVID-19, but obviously been accelerated and amplified significantly by the situation. And so for us at Monday, when we thought about kind of, I wanted to share a little bit of kind of where and how we deal with it. I'll talk about the experience with COVID-19 and some of the things we've done, but I think it's fundamental to say that this is also how the DNA of the organization was built from day one, and really how our values as a company have been translated to the software that we build, and how this software really helps solve a lot of these challenges that we saw. But obviously you need to have this intent built in as an organization to be able to adapt and change. And so when we look at some of these challenges that I presented before, and again, that acceleration or that amplification of challenges that came with COVID, there were a few things that kind of stood out for me and things that I wanted to share. So the first one that we felt really intensely when this whole thing started, was this notion of the need for belonging, the sense of belonging that people all have, and a lot easier to help maintain and manage when everybody is in the same place. A lot more difficult when you are, all working remotely from your home offices. And we as a company did a lot of things, first of all, in identifying that was an issue. And then over these past, 8 months now, really working consistently to really help make people feel like they belong, like they are part of the organization, like they're part of something that's happening. And really acknowledge that, acknowledge the challenges that people are having, and really help connect them to Monday. And it's everything from little things that we ship to our employees, to just having the same routines and some of those rituals that we had before, weekly meetings and get-togethers and virtual connects. Just having people feel like they're part of something and not just sitting there on their own alone, in front of a laptop screen on Zoom. The other thing is around impact and purpose. And again, this is something that's critical to how we do business at Monday, where we really believe that every person is impactful and every person in the organization really has a purpose. And what we do as individuals in the organization, really, we can, anyone in the organization can make a decision and really drive something if it's the right thing for the company. And that sense of purpose really translated immediately when we went into the situation and continues to do so, because people had lots of great ideas about how do we deal with the isolation, how do we deal with some of the challenges that actually came from our clients. How do I now manage our clients? How do I manage my business? How do I manage my manufacturing facility? We had challenges even here at home in Israel with the government trying to assemble some more of a unified view, and really some of those things came into Monday, and we had literally individuals kind of picking those initiatives up and creating task forces, or creating changes in the product, creating changes in our messaging, and really all of that with the ability to affect change and not be afraid to make mistakes and change and move on. The third thing around, again, the challenges that we see, but it's also, again, a built-in trait of how we operate at Monday, is this notion of radical transparency. Again, when you walk away and you're starting to work from your home office and you're all remote and you're doing your little thing, if you're not connected to the big picture, if you can't see everything that's happening around you, that's a big challenge. Right. And this notion of radical transparency, the idea behind it is everything is open. Everybody knows exactly what is happening in the company at any given time. We've got dashboards across the organization that shows everything from, the number of tickets that are in queue to how much ARR we have in our pipeline, to how many signups we did, to, how many bugs the R&D team has. And that transparency and that complete openness means that when you're now disconnected, when you're now sitting at home, you can still go in, you can still see everything. You're still exposed to how decisions are made. And that ability really helped also, back to the sense of belonging that I mentioned before, really helped connect people to our cause. The fourth thing here is agility. And I mentioned failing fast before. The idea behind agility is really being able to say, hey, okay, we're now going to change. We see an issue, we see a challenge, we're going to try and do something and A/B test it, right? Try and do something different and, check it out, try and make it work. If it doesn't work, not get too attached to it and move on, right? So the ability to really come in, check things out, affect change and move on. And if something doesn't work, just, scrap it and move to the next thing. And then the last but not least here is this notion of inclusion. And inclusion has a lot of different forms and a lot of different ways that you do that. But at the heart of it, it's really about how we make decisions, right? We don't, as I mentioned before, around that trickle down thing, we don't make decisions at the top and they sort of trickle down. It's really, people are in the room where it happens. People are there. They're part of the decision, and people are many times driving the decision, and anyone in the organization can be part of affecting really significant change in the company. And all those things really make people feel like they're included. And we really use the power of everyone in the company and not just, a small few to really drive all the great ideas and drive ingenuity and drive change, whether it's in our R&D and development or in our product or in our, go-to-market functions. So, those are some of the keys. Again, I think those are unique to how we obviously tackled those around COVID, but also, they're sort of how we do everything at Monday on an ongoing basis. So, I can't see, obviously, none of this stuff is behind us already, and obviously the jury is still out on whether or not all of this works, but I think really these strategies, these notions of how we tackle the future of work, how we tackle working in this very, very volatile environment has really helped us kind of continue to move forward, continue to grow, continue to drive value to to our customers, even in times where it was a little bit more challenging. And I want to close with, just a few words about Monday. So, I mean, obviously, I believe many of you, if not all of you, know who Monday is, but we build a solution. We call it the work operating system to really help people manage every and any kind of project, process, workflow, or any kind of work that you really have in your organization. We're a global company now. With offices around the world, as you can see here, kind of following the sun from Sydney in Australia all the way to San Francisco, and really at the heart of the value that I believe we bring, and one of the new things that we already brought on board with our kind of marketplace is the ability for organizations to build their work practices into Monday without having to change their work practices to adapt to the software. Our software is built in such a way that's really able to be agile, to be really dynamic around how people manage work. And then, even if it's not in Monday, you can build your apps or build additional capabilities or add-ons within Monday in order to solve your specific work challenge. And how we build the solution represents our values and represents what I mentioned before. Really, the solution is about creating that transparency, creating that agility and ability to adapt to everything that's thrown at us, and really bring in that inclusion and help people manage without introducing the pain, the painful exercise of tracking work and managing work. Really make it a built-in way of how you manage your work more effectively. So that's really it. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today, and I really hope you enjoy the session. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. And thank you.